Last night, the Dallas Stars got their first overtime win of the 22-23 season. And on today's episode, we'll be going back over that game and highlighting the biggest plays from the biggest players and even get some post-game sound bites from Miro Heiskanen, Tyler Seguin, Nils Lundkvist, and of course, Coach Pete DeBoer to get some insight on how the Dallas Stars were able to overcome some adversity and pick up a big 2 points against the Senators on Thursday. And then to close out the episode, we will briefly talk about Saturday's matchup, the final game of the 5-game homestand for the Stars as the Detroit Red Wings come to town, covering all of that and more on today's episode of Locked On Stars.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Bing bong.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, your local expert on all things Dallas Stars hockey, coming to you on this Friday, December 9th. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline.net is where the game starts. And whether this is your first time here or you are a recurring listener, thank you for stopping by and making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on audio only, you can follow on there as well. We are free and available no matter where or how you may choose to listen. Now let's jump into today's episode, highlighting last night's big win for the Stars, and big for a lot of reasons. For starters, Dallas had they had not won a game over the Ottawa Senators since October of 2019. They finally get that monkey off their back. The Senators are a team that potentially has a bright future. They have some good pieces, but if we're being completely honest, they are one of the worst teams in the league at the bottom of their division. Granted, they might be in the toughest division in the league, but despite the talent and despite what previous results in recent games would tell you, the Stars are better than the Ottawa Senators, and they should be getting 2 points when they match up against them, especially when they play at home, and the Stars were able to do just that. Although it wasn't necessarily the prettiest game we've seen from the Stars, they found themselves in overtime yet again. It's kind of started to become a theme a little bit more recently with this Stars team. They needed a hero to step up near the end of regulation. They got that in Nils Lundkvist, who we'll talk about a little bit later on in the show. But then they needed another hero in overtime. Second starting to wind down, it seemed like we were headed for another shootout. But then enter Wyatt, Johnston, and Tyler Seguin. I mean, Tyler Seguin obviously deserves credit for scoring this goal. It was a very high-quality look, one-on-one, point-blank range in front of the net. Tyler Seguin versus Anton Forsberg. Seguin wins that battle. But really, most of the credit on this play has to go to the rookie, Wyatt Johnston, who continues to make big play after big play for the Stars this season. He goes and wins that puck battle and gets the puck to Tyler Seguin exactly where he needs it and sets him up for that eventual game-winning goal. And Wyatt Johnston just continues to make these insanely intelligent plays. High hockey IQ, making the right move, winning a puck battle along the board and feeding Tyler Seguin the puck exactly where he needs it. I mean, that's a play you would expect to see from a Jamie Benn or a Luke Glendening or a Radek Faksa, a veteran forward player on this team. Yet Wyatt Johnston continues to impress as a 19-year-old rookie on this team. And honestly, if you look at that play, you go back and watch it. If that play doesn't work, if Wyatt Johnston doesn't win that battle, or if it's not a good pass, he doesn't win it cleanly and the Senators get possession of it, the Senators have numbers. Seguin had a lot of trust in Wyatt Johnston to kind of hang back and wait by the goal. And obviously the confidence paid off because it worked out for the team in the end. But I mean, you replay that situation and things don't go exactly according to plan and things don't go 100% right for the Stars in that situation. We could be looking at a different result for this game if the Ottawa Senators end up getting numbers in that situation. But enough for me for a second. Let's go ahead and go inside the Stars locker room and hear from Tyler Seguin himself what he thought about the game-winning goal, the play from Nils, and then we'll also hear from Pete DeBoer as well and his thoughts on the play and how big it was for the Stars to get this win in OT.
I don't know. Had a play earlier in overtime where I think I probably should actually pass back left to Mush. Just had in my head mid-glove for the end of third and overtime, and if we went to a shootout, so instincts took over there. We didn't have that throughout most of the game, it worked out when it counted there, and glad we survived that. That goal's because of him. It was an unbelievable play. I know he hasn't been playing much overtime, but he's earned it as of late, the last few games in those overtime moments, and that was all of him. I don't know, it's a funny game. I feel like I'm playing well the last couple of games, and a lot of chances, no finish, and tonight I thought I was and scored the overtime winner, so definitely feel good.
We had some good things happen tonight, despite how the game kind of went through 40 minutes. I thought our third was our best. We won an overtime game. Tyler Seguin got a goal, and first one in a while. Otter had a really solid game. I thought he was excellent. There was some good things that came out of it despite the first 40 minutes. Well, Johnny makes the play, right? He second effort to get a puck back, and great play by a young guy that if he wasn't our best forward tonight, he was in that conversation. So that's good, well deserved. He deserved to be out there. We haven't handed him anything. And I think that's the way it should be with young players. At the same time, you have to reward him if he's playing better than other guys with situations, and that's been the case.
That was a very big and very important goal for Tyler Seguin, who hadn't scored a goal since November 11th when the Stars were playing the Florida Panthers. And hopefully this is a situation, and you heard Coach DeBoer highlight this, hopefully this is a situation where Tyler Seguin scores and he kind of gets the snake bite out of his system, and he's finally able to start rolling again. Because when the season started, Tyler Seguin looked really good, and he still has looked good on and off throughout this stretch where he hasn't scored. You look back at that game on Tuesday against the Maple Leafs, and he had all those grade A chances, like DeBoer said, just wasn't able to execute. And then, tonight, or Thursday night rather, Tyler Seguin maybe not playing his best game. You heard his words. The first time I've ever had to censor a curse word on this podcast, because this is a curse-free zone. But Tyler Seguin, a little less kind to himself about how he played, but at the end of the day, he made a big play for his team and buried the puck and put it in the back of the net. And so the Stars needed that. They needed him in that moment, and hopefully this is the start of a hot streak for Tyler Seguin, and he can kind of get back to being the Seguin that we know that he can be. Because he's scored only 5 goals this season, but they've all been big, and some of them have just been absolute beauty. So we know that there is still some potential with Tyler Seguin. He still can be an excellent player for this team, and came up big for the Stars on a night where they needed to get 2 points, and they had to overcome a little bit of adversity. The Senators, pushing back and giving chase like they tend to do when they play the Stars. They hadn't won a game past regulation this season. They finally did that. They get, that monkey off their back, and I think that's the same thing. Hopefully the Stars don't necessarily have to play a ton of more games in overtime, but it's inevitable that we're probably going to see it a small handful of times throughout the rest of this season. But hopefully getting that first post-regulation win is all they need to get a little bit of confidence and momentum going, and if they ever find themselves in that situation again, whether it's the near future or it's a little ways down the road, hopefully they'll be prepared, and they've seen quite a few different things and seen a lot of different looks, and so I think, if anything, this is just building experience and building character for this team to continue to fight even past the initial 60 minutes in any given hockey game. So I think these games in overtime, while they're stressful, they don't always fall the way that we as Stars fans want them to. At the end of the day, I think it's beneficial in making this team stronger physically in some ways, I'm sure, but also mentally, and just the way that they continue to push one another and push themselves to get the best result that they can for their team. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will talk about another key player, really key players in Thursday night's win. We'll talk about the top defensive pairing in Miro, Heiskanen, and Nils, Lundkvist right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, they've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They are always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action happening around the sports world. BetOnline.net is where the game starts. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day on this Victory Friday episode. The Stars getting the 4-3 OT win over the Ottawa Senators. And a big part of that win, of course, the Tyler Seguin overtime goal, the sweet feed from Wyatt Johnston, but a few other key players in this game along the Stars' blue line. Nils Lundkvist and Miro Heiskanen paired together for the second time in 2 games. Nils Lundkvist had been a healthy scratch for a few games at the end of November, start of December. Coach DeBoer opting for Joel Hanley just to give Nils some time off, and was not necessarily pleased with what he was seeing from Lundkvist, who is still only 22 years old, still really, really young in terms of what is, a pretty average lifespan in the NHL. Still kind of getting his feet under him. Didn't play a ton of games in New York with the Rangers and still is kind of fighting his footing here in Dallas with the Stars. So had a few games off, was a healthy scratch, but he's been back. He returned to the ice on Tuesday against the Maple Leafs. Didn't do necessarily a lot there, but he made a huge impact on Thursday night. He, of course, scored the game-tying goal in the third period with around 5 minutes to go, and also notched an assist on Miro Heiskanen's second goal of the night. Got to give both of those guys a ton of credit for doing what they did. The top line and some other forwards made some nice plays, but as far as scoring, a lot of the heavy lifting was done from the Stars' blue line by what could potentially be maybe the best defensive pairing on this team, and I'm curious to see if the coaching staff, which I imagine they will, if they're going to continue to roll with this duo whenever they make their rosters for games from here on out. Because they looked really good together. Miro Heiskanen just always playing with a ton of confidence on both sides of the ice, and I think that is starting to rub off a little bit on Nils Lundkvist. Of course, a young guy, that's one of the most important parts in their development process. Of course, you want to see them develop those skills on the ice, but you also want to see guys like Lundkvist develop a little bit of confidence, and I think playing alongside Miro Heiskanen, who's one of the best, if not the best in the business, that is a surefire way to make sure that happens. Now, let's hear from both of these guys. Let's hear from Nils Lundkvist and Miro Heiskanen and their thoughts on Thursday night's win and the big plays that they helped make.
Obviously, very fun to get back in, and I think it's been a little bit of a bounce back, and I feel like we're playing better, more active, and obviously fun to win the game tonight. So it was really fun to be back in. Yeah, definitely. I tried to walk down the wall there and trying to get a shot, maybe create a rebound, but luckily it went in. So it was very happy, and obviously. A big goal, so it was good. Obviously, it's always fun to score goals, and as you said, I had a pretty good opportunity there in the second where I probably should have scored, and the shot that went in should not have went in. So it was obviously it gained some confidence, and trying to do my thing, and keep it up.
What have you learned about Miro playing next to him?
Yeah, obviously very easy. He's obviously a top defenseman in this league, and trying to take his back and learn from him and read off him. So he's been very good, and he showed today like he can create by himself and turn a game around by himself. So he's obviously an unreal player.
Oh he was really good. Good making good plays, and I think he was good defensively as well. So it's great seeing that, and of course it's a huge goal for him too, so it's great.
Not to give myself too much credit, but I actually was thinking back to when the Stars signed Nils Lundkvist and was looking back at some of the episodes that were put out around that time, and actually kind of back in September, on September 21st, the episode that got put out, I somewhat called this a little bit and kind of anticipated that we could see this pairing on the Stars blue line. We could see Lundkvist, the right-handed defenseman, get paired with Miro Heiskanen, who's a left-handed defenseman. You see Miro play on his natural side, and you see Nils Lundkvist play on the right side. And while I might not have been spot on in everything I said on that episode, which we'll listen to here in just a second, I think that myself and some others kind of thought with Nils Lundkvist, we didn't really know what we were getting from him just because the sample size was so small. But I think me and a lot of other people knew that there was certainly potential that if Nils Lundkvist continued to develop and grow his game, that he could play alongside Miro Heiskanen and play at a high level. So let's go back in time to September 21st and hear what I had to say in a conversation with John Chick of Locked On New York Rangers about the acquisition of Nils Lundkvist and what he could potentially do with Miro Heiskanen. What's special about Lundkvist with the Stars is that he's a right-handed defenseman, and if you look at the Stars roster, almost all of the defensemen are left-handed, including Miro Heiskanen. And so there's even a possibility not only could he be top 4 if things really go well and he really has a nice camp and has a nice preseason, he very well could find himself on a top pairing with Miro Heiskanen because, he can provide a little bit of that offensive side, and then Heiskanen, while hopefully taking a step forward offensively, can be a little bit more of the, the pure defenseman, the guy that's going to make plays on the defensive side of the ice, while, a guy like Lundkvist could take a little bit more responsibility as far as trying to play make and or shoot the puck. It's really cool now to see that we're possibly seeing, what I talked about on that episode start to come to fruition, and what other people have pondered on and thought about, that if Lundkvist fully reaches his potential, he could be a very lethal player offensively. Of course, you want to see him play well on the defensive end too, but if he doesn't always play as sharp there, you have Miro Heiskanen, who can, for the most part, pick up the slack. I know he actually made a very rare mistake that led to the Senators' first goal of the game, but I feel like that's an anomaly in what has been otherwise a very good defensive season for number 4 on the defensive side of the ice. And so I'm really a big fan of this duo. Again, the sample size of these two playing together is relatively small right now, but I have to imagine that DeBoer and the coaching staff are going to want to see more from this pairing, Lundkvist and Heiskanen playing side by side, because I think they benefit each other greatly, and I think they both play at a high level. And of course, you can't overstate the amount of confidence that Lundkvist seems to get while playing alongside a guy like Miro Heiskanen. It's a really fun duo to watch, and I'm excited to see them continue to develop and grow together as they likely will share more minutes here down the road, and maybe even as soon as Saturday's game against the Detroit Red Wings. Well, we're going to take one more quick break, but when we come back, we will talk about that game that the Stars will play against the Red Wings, closing out the 5-game homestand with one more visitor from the Atlantic Division. We'll talk about the Stars' big game on Saturday, a matinee game against the Detroit Red Wings, right after this. All right, we are closing out this week here at Locked On Stars, getting you ready for Saturday's game. The Stars will close out their 5-game homestand against the Detroit Red Wings and a Saturday matinee, 1 p.m. puck drop. You guys know I've talked about it. I talked about it earlier this week. You guys know how I feel about those afternoon weekend games. Not necessarily my favorite, but the Stars have a great opportunity to close out this homestand on a high note and generate a little bit of momentum as they go on a very challenging and tricky road trip to the Metropolitan Division after this. They've gotten so used to playing at home over the past several games, and now they got to go play some tough games on the road. Got a back-to-back in there featuring the New Jersey Devils. Going to be a very difficult road trip, but you got to focus on the games that are in front of you. And as of right now, for the Stars, that is the game on Saturday afternoon against Detroit. The Red Wings coming into this game are 13-8-5, 31 points, which is good for 4th in the Atlantic Division. They lost on Thursday 5-1 at Florida, and the Stars are actually going to be the final game of a 4-game road trip for the Red Wings. So the Stars closing out a homestand and the Red Wings closing out a road trip here in this matchup. And you look at some of the numbers for this Red Wings team: 19th in the NHL in goals for at 81, 16th in the league in goals against, also 81. The Stars only surrendering 77 goals this season. The Red Wings 19th in power play percentage at 21.9 and 13th in the penalty kill at 79.7. Pretty good penalty killing unit, but if you look a little bit deeper, you'll see that this is one of the most disciplined squads in the NHL. They're 30th in the NHL in time shorthanded. They've only been shorthanded 74 times, so they don't necessarily commit a lot of penalties. They don't rack up a lot of penalty minutes like the Dallas Stars tend to do. So this is a team that, one, it's not going to be easy to get them to commit penalties, so the Stars need to be mindful of that. But then even when they do commit those penalties, they're pretty sharp on the PK. So this could be a challenging game on special teams. Not necessarily the best power play, and the Stars' penalty kill is continuing to dominate and play at an incredibly high level as they shut down the Ottawa Senators on Thursday night. But on special teams, it could be a little bit of a weird game. Hopefully the Stars don't give up too many opportunities to Detroit, and hopefully the Stars can find a way to draw a few penalties and get some looks on the man advantage, because it hasn't looked necessarily great over the past few games. They've made good passes and gotten some good looks, but haven't been able to execute over the past few contests. And so we'll have to see what happens on special teams in this game. Should certainly be an interesting matchup, as again, Detroit is one of the most disciplined teams in the NHL this season. And overall, this season for the Red Wings up to this point has been what I think many would consider a success, given what the expectations were for them coming into this season. They were expected to make a jump and compete for a playoff spot under the leadership of their new head coach, Derek Lalonde, and they've done just that. Like I said, they're kind of hanging around that fourth, third spot in the Atlantic Division, and certainly very much in the thick of a playoff hunt. And again, the Atlantic Division, which might be one of, if not the toughest division in hockey this season. They also returned a very solid roster with plenty of old returning talent, but also a few new faces sprinkled in. You, of course, have Dylan Larkin leading the way in scoring, 9 goals, 17 assists. Dominic Kubalik, who is a fairly new addition, 10 goals and 15 assists on the season. Philip Hronik, 6 goals, 18 assists. And then, of course, you have several other big-name players, some of them, again, returning to the Red Wings after playing their previous seasons, and a few new faces like David Perron, Andrew Kopp, Lucas Raymond, and 2022 Calder Trophy winner Moritz Seider. Tons of really good and young talent on this roster. I mean, it's really impressive what they've built. I mean, it's kind of been a slow build there in Detroit, but this season, if it's been any indication so far, they're finally starting to trend upwards and could very well find themselves in the hunt for the playoffs all the way through the end of the season. And I personally would not be surprised if they made it to the playoffs. I think they could be a potentially dark horse, dangerous team once they get there. I mean, they've really built a solid team that, Lalonde can coach, and they've found a way to utilize their guys. Not necessarily the most dangerous offense in the league, but these guys can definitely burn you if they're on and they're having a good night. But it's not just the skaters on this roster that can burn you. One of the best surprises this season for the Red Wings has been the emergence of Ville Husso, who they traded for in the offseason. They traded with the St. Louis Blues and got Husso to come be the number one goalie in Detroit this season. And he is having a fantastic season. 11 wins, 4 losses, 3 overtime losses with a 2.54 goals against average and a 9.16 save percentage. Very solid numbers from Ville Husso. He's actually been on my fantasy hockey team this season, so even without watching that many Red Wings games, I've personally have reaped the benefits of Husso having what has been a pretty solid season. And then not to be forgotten about, the second string goalie on this team, 2021 Calder finalist Alex Nedeljkovic, who is 2-3-2 with a 3.97 goals against average and an 8.80 save percentage. Not the greatest numbers for Nedeljkovic, but still a guy that you do have to consider. But if I were to guess in this game, I imagine that we will see Ville Husso, as he probably gives the Red Wings the best chance to win this game. Curious to see how he performs against this Dallas Stars offense. But the key to this game is going to be the penalties. The Stars need to find a way to limit the amount of penalties that they commit, and they also have to find a way to try to get under the Red Wings' skin and try to draw a few penalties out of them, because the penalty kill, while it's good, I think you also have to factor in that they aren't on the kill all that much, so that doesn't necessarily allow that number or percentage to fluctuate. If they can put that PK to the test, I think the Dallas Stars can put up 1, 2, maybe even 3 power play goals if they get that many opportunities, because I think that they're, both power play units are hungry and they're ready to strike. It's been a little bit since they've been able to bury a puck on the man advantage, and they want to get that opportunity in this game. But you also can't give this Red Wings team too many chances. Like I said, this roster, while it's not the most explosive offense in the league, you cannot let them get out to big leads, because this is a team with good goaltending and really solid forward play, really solid defenseman play. I mean, they can keep the foot on the pedal, and really, dominate a game when the time comes. A little bit inconsistent at times, but you tend to expect that with a still relatively young team and a new head coach. But this should be a very fun game, despite it being played at 1 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. I, for one, am looking forward to it. And if you ask me, one of the better uniform matchups in the NHL. The Stars victory green mixed with the white and red. A nice little Christmas color palette here for a mid-December NHL matchup. But all the Dallas Stars need to do is play hard, both sides of the ice, try to get those special teams opportunities on the power play, give your goalie good support, and you'll find a way to get 2 points in this matchup and head to New Jersey with a little bit of confidence. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Thank you again for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Remember to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform. Leave us a rating or review if you like what you hear. You can just leave us a nice big old 5 stars. Helps the show out a ton. And you can find us on social media at Locked On Stars on both Instagram and Twitter, as well as my personal Twitter account at Dane_Lewis. And we'll be back here on Monday talking about Saturday's game. hopefully talking about a Stars win, and we'll be getting you ready for Monday night's game. The Dallas Stars traveling to New Jersey for a date with the Red Hot Devils. Going to be an interesting road trip, to say the least. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself, relax a little bit. And if you're going to the game, enjoy the game and be loud and cheer the Stars on to victory. But I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday.